4,000 years ago, on the island of Crete, people built the first great palaces in all of Europe and covered their walls with leaping bulls and dolphins. Then they vanished so completely that, for 3,000 years, the world remembered them only as a myth. They left behind a written language, and we still cannot read it. We know their cities and their gods and their art, and we do not even know what they called themselves. The Greeks who came after them kept only a story: a king named Minos, a maze called the Labyrinth, and a monster with the head of a bull waiting at its heart. And there was a catastrophe. One of the largest volcanic eruptions in human history tore open an island a short sail from their shores, and some people wonder whether the memory of it became the legend of Atlantis. We call them the Minoans, a name borrowed from that Greek myth because their own was lost along with their language. What they actually built and how a whole civilization slipped into legend begins on Crete 4,000 years ago. Crete is a long, mountainous island in the eastern Mediterranean, set between Europe, Africa, and the Near East. Around 4,000 years ago, the people living there began building something no one in Europe had built before: enormous palaces. The largest rose at a place called Knossos. It was a sprawling complex of hundreds of rooms across several floors, with grand staircases, deep storerooms, workshops, and even running water and drains. The plan was so complicated, so full of twisting corridors and connected halls, that when it was finally dug up thousands of years later, it looked exactly like a maze. This almost certainly is where the legend of the Labyrinth was born. What these towns did not have was walls. In an age when most cities hid behind heavy fortifications, the people of Crete left theirs open. The sea was their wall, and their ships were their defense. Because they were, above all, a people of the sea, Cretan ships crossed the whole Aegean and traded as far as Egypt and the Near Eastern coast, carrying oil, wine, pottery, and fine craftsmanship, and bringing home gold, copper, and ivory. The wealth came back as art. They painted their walls with dolphins and flying fish, with gardens and monkeys, with elegant women in bright blue, in colors so fresh they look almost modern. No one in Europe was making anything like it. Above everything stood the bull. Bulls filled their art, and their most famous ritual was bull leaping, young men and women vaulting clean over the back of a charging bull. Their sacred sign was the double axe, the Labyrinth, and that word may be the very root of labyrinth. Women stand at the center of their paintings and their religion, more prominent than in almost any other society of the age. And to run it all, they kept records in a script we now call Linear A language that, to this day, no one has managed to read. By around the 17th century BC, the Minoans were the most advanced civilization in Europe and among the most admired in their corner of the world. Their goods and their fashions turned up on coastlines hundreds of miles away. Their styles spread across the islands of the Aegean, and their painters were so prized that Minoan frescoes have turned up on the walls of palaces in Egypt and the Near East. The clearest window into their world is a town called Akrotiri on the island of Thera, a short voyage north of Crete. It was a prosperous port of paved streets and tall houses, several stories high. Akrotiri had drains and indoor plumbing, and its walls were covered in paintings. Boys boxing, women gathering flowers, and a whole fleet of ships sailing between islands in a great procession. From their art, this looks like a confident, sea-loving people who like color and comfort and celebration, a civilization near the very top of its powers. For several centuries, this small island world sat at the beating heart of the Eastern Mediterranean, richer and more refined than almost anything around it. But Akrotiri, the jewel of that world, had been built on the slopes of a volcano. The mountain under its feet was not dead, it was only sleeping. Around 1600 BC, and the exact date is still argued over, the volcano at Thera erupted. It was one of the largest eruptions in all of human history. It blew the center of the island apart and threw a column of ash miles into the sky. The blast reached across the whole Eastern Mediterranean, and its ash fell as far away as Egypt. The town of Akrotiri was buried under many meters of ash and pumice, sealed away so completely that its houses still stand 2 and 3 stories tall. But when archaeologists finally dug it out, they found no bodies and almost no gold. The earthquakes before the eruption had warned the people, and they had gathered what they could and fled by sea. The ash preserved not a graveyard, but an empty town, frozen in a single day. Across the water on Crete, the coast was battered by ashfall and by tsunamis thrown up as the island collapsed. Harbors, ships, and the farmland along the shore were wrecked. And here the story turns, because this is not where the Minoans died. For all its violence, the eruption did not wipe them out. They lived on for generations afterward. But something had broken. A civilization built on the sea had taken a terrible blow from the sea, and it never fully won back its old reach and confidence. Then around 1450 BC, more than a century later, ruin came again. Across Crete, the palaces and towns burned, one after another, and nearly all of them were destroyed. Only Knossos was left standing. And into Knossos moved a new people, the Mycenaeans, warlike Greeks from the mainland, who took the great palace for their own. You can read the takeover in the writing itself. The old Minoan script gives way to a new one, Linear B, and when that script was finally cracked in the 20th century, it turned out to be an early form of Greek. New masters were keeping the books. Knossos itself burned for the last time within a century or two. This time, no one rebuilt it, and the palace that had ruled Crete fell silent for good. Then around 1200 BC, the whole Bronze Age world came apart. Kingdoms across the Eastern Mediterranean fell together, and the palaces of Greece went down with them. Greece slid into a dark age so deep that even writing was forgotten. And the Minoans, the people who built the first palaces in Europe, dropped out of history altogether until all that was left of them was a story about a king and a maze. For 3,000 years, that was all anyone had, the story. Then in 1900, a British archaeologist named Arthur Evans began digging into a hill on Crete, and he uncovered the Palace of Knossos. The labyrinth was real. Out of the ground came the staircases, the storerooms and the paintings, the dolphins, the women in blue, the leaping bulls, still bright after 3,500 years. And under the ash of Thera, the buried town of Akrotiri came back almost whole, a Bronze Age port you can walk through today, its wall paintings waiting where their owners had left them. But the writing keeps it secret. We can sound out the signs of Linear A one by one and still not understand a single sentence. We know their bulls and their gods and their ships, and we still do not know their name for themselves. A great sea power at the height of its glory, struck by a catastrophe out of the sea, then lost to memory. It is easy to see why some people believe the Minoans were the real Atlantis. Most scholars doubt it, and a lost world this real needs no legend to be worth remembering. They did not sink beneath the waves in a single night. They outlived a volcano, lost their independence to conquerors, and slowly slipped from memory. But their story never quite died. The bull, the maze, and King Minos passed into Greek myth, and through the Greeks into ours. Europe's first great civilization did not so much end as dissolve. Its people and its ideas absorbed into the Greeks, who conquered them, and the stories those Greeks told. We handed them the name of a king from a legend because we had lost their real one, but their bulls still leap across the palace walls, and their island is still there, holding a language we have not finished reading. Empires fall, people remain,